to say.
Yeah.
This goes back to sort of your bullet points. I don't know if either of these are your bullet points. You probably see a lot of winning 5-5 players, guys who are basically grinding out $30 an hour. They have enough to pay for their fucking like Brandon Uhl types. They got enough to pay for their fucking used Honda Civic, and they eat free food at the casino every day. And as far as they're concerned, they're fucking living a dream. But if you were going to step up from being a $30 an hour, $30 an hour 5-5 player, no limit player, to a $120 an hour 5-5 no limit player, give me 3 or 4 things that you see winning players do, not losing players, winning players do that you say to yourself, like, this guy is leaving so much money on the table. Why can't he figure out that he should just overbet in this spot or fold this, blah, blah, blah. Give me a couple bullet points on things, not that you see losing players do, but that you see winning players do that you think cost them the most money.
Sure. Well, one of the biggest things is I don't think they bluff nearly enough.
Okay.
I think a lot of those players that play at the 5-5 level that did not move up to bigger stakes, they got by during the poker boom by beating lots of recreational players that saw poker on TV, who were interested, gave it a shot, and came to play. And now enough time has passed where those players are gone. You know, there's attrition every year, survival of the fittest. And so everyone has some financial threshold where the pain becomes too great of how much money they've lost. They drop out and play, and now there's new players on the totem pole. And a lot of these players made their winnings at 5-5 by just playing really tight, playing very robotically, and just waiting for a hand, and then just hope to, run into some recreational player who's just physically incapable of folding a hand that's top pair or better, and just, stalking that guy. And each year, there's going to be less and less of those players. And so you have to kind of expand your skill set to make up for the lack of those types of players. So one of the areas to really work on is bet sizing. Think about and also just bluffing more. Like, I've seen players that they just literally never bluff, even winning players. And they can win that much money, and all they do is just wait for a really good hand, and they just play. Bet the flop get called, bet the turn get called, bet the river, and if they ever get raised at any point with by anything, if they don't have better than one pair, they just kind of robotically bet fold their hands.
Yeah, it's a classic bet fold strategy. There's an entire website. There's an entire training site built that basically just tells people to bet until you get raised and then fold.
Right. And so, yes, and so I categorize those. So I actually categorize those winning pros as tagfish. That's what I call them, tagfish.
Right.
And so I just I know about that they take these bet fold lines, and my hand reading is good enough where I know their ranges, and I kind of know what cards are bad for their range. When any kind of straightening card that adds connectivity to the board peels on the turn, I just raise those turns very often, and they fold all their top pair or even over pairs by repping a slow played set or turn gutter or turn open ender, even though I just don't have what they think I have. So, and I just and the thing is bluffing. That's the biggest thing, I think. It's because all these players got by without ever having the need to bluff. They just never developed the ability to make big bluffs for 200 big blinds. They just do not have that in their game. That's the biggest thing. And so one of the biggest things I do is just pay attention to what my opponents can or cannot do. And so some people just cannot call a bet over a certain amount of money with one pair. And if you're able to get your hand reading to the point where you can very confidently say, oh, this player only has one pair because let's say he raised an early position, and this board has a lot of middle cards on it, and his hand is very high card heavy, so he can't have better than one pair here. And and if I call the flop, raise the turn, and bomb the river, I will win this hand 100% of the time. And there's so many of those pros you described that win $30-$40 an hour that just literally have never developed this aspect to their game.
So
and Sure.
So you're floating like sort of like reg fish or tag regs or whatever you call them. You're floating these guys a lot, and you're looking for scare cards to bluff them on. You basically try to pick out the guys in the lineup who are just trying to make money, showing down winners against fish. And you're picking on them. Give me one actual hand that would work this way. How they raised, you flatted, the board came out what, and you decided to make a play on them with what? Just so the people at home can wrap their brain around this.
Yeah. So let me just think of a good hand that illustrates that point. Like for example, like let's say okay, here we go. Like I went 3-5 offsuit. 4-5 offsuit in late position on the button after a few whimpers.
Right.
And the flop came 9-4 deuce rainbow. So
right.
I had middle pair, and I had like a backdoor straight draw. If I pick up a 3, if I put an open ender on an ace, I pick up a better, things like that.
Right.
And this Asian chick like led the blinds. She got one caller, and I overcalled on the button.
Right.
And the turn was an ace, and she bet again, kind of like on the smaller sizing that like rep 9x very heavily. So I didn't think she could even beat the ace, to be honest. The other player folded, and I just raised the turn with my third pair and gutter, and she actually showed 9-4, 2 flops, 2 pair, and folded the turn.
There you go.
And that's like a spot where, you know, people like they might fold pre-flop, they might fold the flop, and they do just call the turn, or you know, like, or just even if they call the turn, they certainly wouldn't raise the river and stuff.
Right.
But it very often helps to just you know how like in those sample hands I was quizzed on,
right.
How in the second hand where I said the 3-bet the king 10 off because got open for 20 is pay attention to bet sizing. Like people use like these blocker bets or smaller bets very often to try and get the showdown, or they're revealing that their hand's not very strong, you know?
Right.
Like pick up, you know, pay attention to those kinds of things. Like if someone bets bigger in a certain spot, you figure out what they had, try and figure out why are they now betting smaller? Do they like their hand? Are they trying to induce? More often than not, they're not actually trying to induce a bluff. They're actually just, their hand is actually quite scared.
Right.
And if you can identify these spots, you can basically bluff raise here with impunity. You know, like they just they will not like, you know, counterplay it or just call enough. You know,
right.
They'll just fold very often, and those are the things you need to pick up on to win pots. I also actually have
403. You're on with Mike Basich. What's up?
Hey Lyman, it's Calgary Poker Guy. How's it going?
Hey Calgary Poker Guy. What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I heard you guys talking about bluffs, so. You know, some players, they love to show bluffs. Some players swear by never showing bluffs. So I just wanted to ask Mike what his philosophy on showing bluffs is.
What's your philosophy there, Mike, on showing? I'm going to hang up on you, Calgary Poker Guy, because you got a bad connection. There's a lot of static, Calgary. Great question, though. Mike, you say that you bluff more than the average pro. Are you showing those, or are you just sort of keeping it to yourself?
Absolutely, nonstop. I would show bluffs over and over and over again because, like I said, most players just don't bluff anywhere near enough, and they just don't get called, you know?
Right.
And those players that just basically, like, when people think you never bluff, when you make a flush, when you make anything where you end up betting or raising, you just don't get called nearly enough, you know?
Right.
And, you know, when I do, like, really big bluffs, I definitely show those because there's players that, like, that play for years at 5-5, like, you know, professionally, that just aren't capable of making a bluff of like 200 big blinds, or it's just not even in their repertoire.
Right.
So I mean, if I'm doing like a simple little, you know, like I raise pre, get one caller, and if I check and I just see bet, like, you know, like 5 high, I fold, like that's not worth showing. That's just, you know, like standard that's happening nonstop. I'm not going to take the time to like, you know, rub 5 high in someone's face for like, you know, like a $20 pot.
Right.
But when it's like really big bluffs where I think that 99% of the player base like doesn't even have that in their arsenal,
right.
I definitely love showing those because even especially like when you first play with someone, because, you know, first images last a very long time.
Yes.
And so if you first play with someone and have that, like, you will get so much action. I mean, I bluff, but I'm still disproportionately more value heavy than I am bluff heavy.
Right.
And so I show the bluffs, and you want to try and like emphasize, oh, I'm a crazy bluffer, and then you just stick to like lots and lots of good hand reading and thin value bets, and you just pound them with value bets. That's where most of your money comes from. It's
right.
like everyone knows how to play really, really strong hands, and everyone knows how to play really, really weak hands. Right. The mark of like a really good player is how do you play your medium strength hand, and that all comes down to like hand reading and thin value bets. That's where like the bulk of your winnings will come from eventually, you know. And so,
right.
But yeah, so I love showing bluffs and then just playing a more value oriented game and just using good hand reading and just lots of thin value bets, and then also being able to make a flush and actually have someone pay me off when it seems pretty obvious I probably have a flush,
right,
because I've shown bluffs. Like there's people that just draw to a flush and it gets there, and there's literally no hand they could ever have other than a flush.
Right.
And those people are like the pros that Limon talked about that make $30 an hour, and they still are able to find some recreational player
right,
that can't full top pair, but those are becoming fewer and fewer. So you got to kind of keep growing as a player to kind of, make yourself tougher to play against. But like I said, most players don't bluff enough. So if you're doing some pretty cool, interesting, big bluffs, I definitely encourage showing it. But then at the back of your head, try and kind of understand what that does to your image, and don't complain if you're getting called down too much later on. Just start value betting more,
So do you worry at all, though, that if you're showing those bluffs, that some of the sharper players will start taking that play away from you, or do the sharp players just sort of back into a shell and sort of let you be table captain?
They, to be honest, the sharper players try to become friends with me and try not to play with me, and a lot of times, I'm not. You know what the craziest thing I've actually experienced over this past year is that the other players that I consider decent to pretty good,
right,
they actually table change away from my table onto the other tables. And what ends up happening is I actually end up on a table that's better than average.
Nice.
Because the other players that grind out their whatever 20, 30, 40, 50 an hour, that would actually cut into my win rate possibly, they actually table change away from me, and so I end up on better than average tables, if you can believe it or not.
I believe it.
So it's I get the double dip the value of crushing,
I feel like I'm basically retired now.